We've had barely a week of a slow reopening as Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham tries to balance a pandemic with a recession. The governor announced at a news conference this week she's pegged June 18th for the start of a special legislative session to patch holes in the budget. She also hopes to let restaurants open to dine-in customers by June 1st. That's interesting. That after health experts say the state's transmission rates continues to inch downward. I've got this week's Line Opinion panel here with me remotely, of course. Former state senator and line regular Dede Feldman is with us. Former House Rep and line regular and favorite Daniel Foley is with us from his living room. And Catherine McGill is back. She's the founder, director of the New Mexico Black Leadership Council. Thanks to all for being here. Catherine McGill, let me start with you. It struck me looking at the coverage over the weekend that while non-essential businesses could open, many chose not to. It's hard to get a feel for what exactly is going on out there, but from your observation, you being out and about this week, what were you sensing?
I think that, people are still unclear about the guidelines, what their liabilities are, whether or not they can open with the restrictions that are still in place and have it be beneficial. So people are adopting a wait and see attitude in some cases to try to, well, what is everybody else doing? How can I apply that to my business? And that when they open, they want to be able to remain open and not have to close again because of some mistakes they made. So I think, people are, I think, rightfully so, being careful about how they reopen and hopefully being carefully considering the health of the public as they make those choices.
Right. Dede, of course, the governor laid down the edict last week about mask use, and it's interesting to watch Facebook reporting, so to speak. Folks out and about complaining about no masks being used, some elated seeing 100% mask use. Dede, what's your sense of it on the mask thing? And we'll get to some other parts of it, but what's your sense of that one?
Well, I hope it's not a new partisan divide, the masked versus the unmasked. It looks like maybe it's happening that way. I am not seeing a great deal of compliance here in the North Valley, out on the trails where I walk. And yet there are people also that are wearing masks. So, it looks kind of 50-50 to me that, of course, the problem is, this is an edict, but there is no enforcement. It is, it's kind of relying on peer pressure. It's relying on the honor system. And, there's problems with the honor system because, there are people that just don't care about it. And so, I don't know what to say. Of course, there is a suit now, I believe a lawsuit that is challenging the authority of the governor under the Public Health Emergency Act to enforce a penalty for, I think it's closures of stores, not necessarily mask wearing, but the same theory I think applies. Can the governor actually enforce this? Can she rely on peer pressure? Certainly that's the first step, is using voluntary compliance. And, there is, we should just consider even half of the people complying as being a victory. In how many other laws are voluntarily complied with? So, yeah.
I thought about that too. We should readjust what we consider success on this. That's for sure. Daniel, it's interesting when I think about churches. That's one of those side issues, but was very serious for church-going folk. What's your sense of how that's going to work for churchgoers? Because honestly, across the country, Dan, there's been outbreaks in churches when folks get together without masks and without distancing and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think we have to have a conversation, and you have to, we have to separate, which I think we have a hard time doing because we've politicized everything nowadays, of separating the conversation about, look, at what level does the government have the right to tell a church you're not allowed to meet, right? Okay. At what level can they tell a church you can only do A, B, or C? I think the governor made a great move by quickly fixing her edict and saying, all churches get 10% of the population and Walmart gets, 25% of the population doesn't work. And I think that's the kind of stuff that frustrates people. I think in this scenario, I think churches have felt really frustrated that you're telling us at a church, and I'm saying us as I'm representing a church. I'm not. I'm just saying that. You're telling churches we can't meet, but yet 900 people can go to Walmart during all this and bump into each other and shop and do this stuff. And I think there's just a lot of people who said, wait a minute, why is Walmart and your ability to go to Walmart or wander around Home Depot more important than my ability to go once a week to church? And I think the governor, to her credit, has moved and said, listen, we're gonna get churches on the same trajectory as the big box stores and letting them do the things they need to do. Because listen, we used to say, if you remember the great quote from Any Given Sunday, the foxholes, right? People are not very religious until pandemics show up, and then all of a sudden there's a lot more people that suddenly want to get a little God in their life. And so, you start wanting to get a little more God in your life, and someone starts telling you can't get more God in your life. You suddenly realize how much more you want God in your life. So, I think the governor's doing a better job now of saying, listen, we're going to embrace this holistic approach and understanding this. I think the other thing we have to remember too in New Mexico, we're not Los Angeles, California. We're not New York, Chicago. Overwhelming numbers of churches outside of Catholic churches, but I would probably say even with Catholic churches, there are 50, 60, 100 people in this state, right? I mean, our state is full of small town churches. They're not all mega churches like Calvary and the Basilica. They're small churches. And I think at some point, they felt a little like they should be able to manage themselves. But the governor's coming around. I think churches are feeling better about it. I think they're feeling happier about it. I think they're feeling more engaged in the process. And I think it's going to work better for everybody.
Yeah. Kathy McGill, one thing, when I put myself in the governor's position here, there's an interesting and problematic collision course that we're on here when you think about it, Kathy. We don't know what's going to happen from this so-called soft opening we've just had this week, meaning more COVID cases for about 2 weeks. And that's going to be right after the point we open restaurants for dine-in service. What happens if we have a downturn and the numbers don't look so good? Does the governor have any political wiggle room to then re-shut things down at that point once things open?
I think that's why, people are taking a slow approach to reopening, because we don't want to have to shut down again. And the voluntary compliance with the public health orders are going to help that. As what Dan was talking about related to churches, what I've seen out there is that a lot of churches are saying, we agree with what the governor has said to do, but all of this comes down to money and to trying to make sure that we can be sustained after the pandemic is over, but none of us know when it's over. So does the governor have wiggle room to put in place more restrictions if something happens? Absolutely. And we want to avoid that. So the onus is on the citizenry to say voluntary compliance, even if you don't agree that a mask is something that's appropriate for you to do, just do it. What's it going to hurt?
I think we also have to be honest. And I'm not saying you, I'm just in general. When you say, hey, if she releases these restrictions, we may have an uptick. We're going to have an uptick. It's a virus. I mean, we've got to understand whether we agree with it or like it or don't like it. You've heard, I never understood the whole herd theory and the herd mentality. And, now that you're hearing all the stuff about, the best way to get the herd through a disease is you have to indoctrinate, you have to introduce the entire herd to it, not, pull one cow out at a time and let them get sick because they don't respond to it. And that's kind of what the theory is behind the herd theory. But listen, we've done a good job of shutting things down, right? Schools stopped operating, businesses stopped operating. I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't down in Hobbs and Roswell, but you go to downtown Albuquerque when this first started, it was a ghost town. I mean, we've done a lot of things, and the economy tells you that people have been staying home. When we now say, hey, start to go out. So the reason I'm jumping in and saying this, Gene, is when we say, what can the governor do if there is an uptick? There's going to be an uptick. It's going to happen. More people are going to get sick because more people are going to get exposed to this. I think that you got to listen to the doctors and say, some out there saying that's the only way to cure this. Others are saying it's not. But I think as the media and as those of us that are out here talking, when we present this narrative that says, oh no, if the governor loosens restrictions, we might have an uptick. Oh no, you're going to have an uptick. It's not we might, we will. And I think that you're going to have to be very careful and balance. Do we overreact or do we act correctly?
Well, I think it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game.
Didi, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
It's a numbers game, and I think the administration and Dr. Scrace are playing the numbers game. They're doing it, managing how big of a resurgence would there be, and they're going slow, taking very measured steps, so that if we do have a new outbreak, and remember, there's some studies that say that just wearing masks reduces the incidence of this disease 20%.
That's right.
And so just wearing masks could save like the lives of 1,800 people. Who knows whether that's true or not? Mm-hmm. There are various models, and I think that Scrace and Kunkel and Michelle are well equipped, and they are looking at them all, and the steps that they are taking kind of reflect that. I do trust that that's the case. I know Dr. Scrace, he is a data-driven guy, but he's also reality-based because you can't shut down the government indefinitely. It's impossible.
Right on. I appreciate you getting in those thoughts. No doubt about that. We're going to have to leave that there.